So we are live. Boom. Recording. So welcome to the Clickable Podcast, Mike. Or Mike or Michael. I always forget.
Michael's fine. Thanks for having me, Caroline.
For sure. No, I'm super happy to have you because you have a really cool story from when we started talking on all those gangster digital marketing stories from the 90s, and like all those cool strategies are really cool to hear about too, because it always lets us kind of see in the future, with things that have happened in the past, especially with strategies as they change over time and costs and things like that. So, and just your background in general, you got some pretty cool achievements on your tool belt, on your business tool belt, if you will. So we definitely want to hear about all those things, selling companies and building companies super quick and all that. So, just, why don't you just go ahead and start telling us a little bit about you and where you're from and brief bio and all that fun stuff. Anything else you want us to know about you, your favorite color, your favorite drink?
Well, that's going to be a long list. I'm a Florida native, born in Gainesville, Florida. I live now in Winter Park, which is a suburb of Orlando, Florida. And I got started in digital marketing back in about 2001. And at the time, I didn't even know really what a website was. Email was fairly new. Google was a brand new name. Amazon was around, but they were selling books at that time. Again, this is almost 20 years ago. So the digital marketing world was Wild West back then.
Yeah.
There was really no experts, so everything you did and learned, you had to learn on your own. And hopefully there was someone that was a little bit more knowledgeable than you that you could learn from. So as I said, the Wild West was the best way I can describe it, because there was no white papers, there was no real training courses for SEO or paid search or anything else. Right. So we just did stuff that we thought made sense and hoped for the best. Like, so I was looking for a new business. I'd been in the air conditioning business for quite a while, and I was looking for a way to bring it up to date. And when the digital world came along, I thought, I wonder if there's an opportunity here, but I couldn't figure out how to make it work with air conditioning, because air conditioning is a hands-on service. There's two components of it, where you go to someone's home or business and service their air conditioner. And the other aspect was selling new equipment and installing it. So I thought, well, we can't really install online. So what I did was, one day I was at a friend of mine's house, and I picked up a copy of Woman's World magazine. Okay. And I saw an article about a lady who was making $400, I think it was, a month on a website called eBay. And I thought, what's this eBay thing? So I went to eBay and I saw that it was an auction site. And as I said, that was really the only place 19 years ago to sell products online, because Amazon was strictly books and there was no real e-commerce out to speak of. So I thought, okay, what can I sell online? So I happened to be wandering through a store called Tuesday Morning, which is a retail brick and mortar store, which is still around.
There too. My mom, my mom loves to go there. She loves to.
Yeah, it's a great store. And I just happened to be wandering through with this mindset, this subconscious mindset about trying to build a business online. And I happened to come across some 600 thread count sheets, Egyptian cotton 600 thread count sheets that they were selling for $125. And they said the retail value was $350. Let me try this. So I didn't even, I went and listed them on eBay just to see if it would sell. I bought them for $125 plus tax, and I was able to sell them on eBay for $295. And I sold one or two, and I thought, this is pretty cool. So I went back and bought every single 600 thread count sheet that I could find in that store, which is probably about 10. Took them back, listed them on eBay, sold every single one of them within 3 or 4 days.
No way.
Yeah, so I thought, wow, this is cool.
What year was this?
Sorry?
What year was this?
This was 2001.
Okay. Did the .com crash, did it ever affect you any, or this was when you were starting out your online journey?
I was just starting. The .com crash was more related to the stock market than it was to the physical attributes of any given website.
Right.
Stock values. The .com crash was related to stock values when people were investing in these sites and they weren't making money and nobody knew where the heck it was going. So big dive in the stock market technology sector.
Right.
So I ran out of these 600 thread count sheets and I thought, what can I do? So I went and rented a trailer. and I hit every single Tuesday morning store in the Southeast United States, all throughout Florida. And I wound up buying, I don't know, it was something like $25,000 or $30,000 worth of these dang sheets.
Oh
Put them up on eBay and sold every single one of them within like 3 weeks.
Wow.
Okay, this is cool.
And you're making like 2x off of every single one.
A little bit more. I was buying for $125 and selling them for $300.
Wow.
So my gross on each set of sheets was about $175 less the tax I paid. So it was worthwhile. I was raking in the dough, and I thought, man, this is really cool. But the problem was I had bought every single set of 600 thread count sheets in every Tuesday morning store in the Southeast United States. So I thought, okay, I've tested this model and it worked great. Now what can I sell that's reproducible and sustainable and where I can get it all the time? So I went back to the air conditioning thought, and I said, I wonder if I can sell air conditioning systems online. Mm-hmm. They're complex and they're complicated. Mm-hmm. But I thought, let's give it a shot. So I went onto eBay and I listed 5 systems on eBay. Mm-hmm. First week I did $30,000 in sales.
No.
I was ecstatic. I told my friends and they were just in non-belief. They said, you're using this thing called the internet? I said, yeah, it's on the internet. It's a place called eBay.
And this is just a listing, right? You're not like running any ads or anything. It's just like putting it on there.
Just put listing on eBay and paying eBay, I think it was a 5% commission or something.
Wow.
A single number. And these shopping cart orders were coming in overnight. I'd get up in the morning, and sometimes in the middle of the night, I'd pop up and go run to my computer, and I'd see I had 3 sales in the last 2 hours.
Wow.
And $500 while I was sleeping.
Wow.
So I was really enthused by this, and I thought, okay, what can I do that's sustainable and will work in the long term? So I thought about selling air conditioning systems, and I went online, and nobody was selling air conditioning systems online. So my first thought was, okay, either it won't work or it's a fantastic opportunity.
Right.
I took this mindset that it was a fantastic opportunity and listed my first systems on eBay, and I told you did $30,000 in sales. Well, at that time, I had to list them in the home and garden miscellaneous section of eBay because there was no cash. After eBay saw me do $30,000 in sales, about a week later, they listed a heating and cooling systems category. So now I had a place to list my systems where people could easily find them.
Nice.
These systems on there, and I was doing a lot of business on eBay. And after about 6 months of this, I thought, maybe I should build one of those things called a website. Didn't know the first thing about it, but I thought, okay, I'm gonna look into that. So I talked to a web developer. Web developer told me, yeah, I can build you one of those. And I said, okay, I need a shopping cart so people can add it to the shopping cart. And he said, nah, don't bother. He said, your average sale is gonna be $2,000. Nobody's gonna put that in the shopping cart. And I said, nah, let's just do it anyway. So I overrode him, and I had him do a shopping cart. Right. And our first year, we did something like $500,000 or $600,000 in sales. And then as soon as I redid the website and got it right, our sales jumped up to millions of dollars a year practically overnight.
Wow.
acdirect.com is now the largest and oldest e-commerce site in the heating and air conditioning industry. And we've done tens of millions of dollars in sales on it. It's pushing about $100 million in total sales now. I sold the company about 6 years ago.
Woo woo! Congrats, by the way. That's like what every entrepreneur dreams about, right? Is like building the thing and then getting that big piece of cheddar, you know?
Yep. So it was a cool thing. And they called me back just recently, about 2 months ago, and wanted me to come back as a consultant because they don't really understand the whole e-commerce thing. They are very good at managing a heating and air
every day.
company.
It's changing every day. So, you know, it's
it changes all the time.
To do the same thing and still make the same amount of money. You know?
Yeah, so it's been very difficult for them to keep up with. So what we're doing now is getting the site optimized, getting our rankings better. The website's domain authority is very good because it's been there for 15 years.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It just needs more SEO effort. It needs more on-page search engine optimization. I'm looking at doing some Facebook Marketplace, listing the systems there, and some different strategies to help increase the sales back up where they should be. Mm-hmm. Process of that. But it was a very interesting thing. When I first started this company back in the early 2000s, I remember getting death threats from contractors because they thought that I was going to put them out of business. Right. And then the manufacturers of the equipment that I was selling were sending me cease and desist notice because they were getting complaints from contractor that there was this weirdo selling heating and air conditioning systems online, and he must be a scammer because you can't do that.
That was unheard of at the time.
Yeah, right. It was totally unheard of. So I got a lot of kickback from the industry, but I knew where it was going. So I ignored the cease and desist. I ignored the voicemail death threats that I got and just kept selling the stuff. And over time, of course, it turned out I was correct, because now there's a whole industry selling heating and air conditioning.
My bad.
Yeah, let me shut my phone off too,
I'll
because it'll
edit
ring
that
17
out.
times.
Yeah. Forgot to put that on Do Not Disturb. I got to come up with a checklist here. But don't worry, I have somebody that'll edit it out. So we're good.
Yeah, it's okay. So the bottom line I learned from that is just stick to it in this. I knew that I wanted something. I was selling the hell out of these air conditioning systems, and I wasn't going to let a blind manufacturer or contractor get in my way, because there was really nothing they could do, even though they served me legal cease and desist notice and said, quit selling our systems online. I talked to an attorney. He said, they can't stop you from doing that. So anyway, the bottom line was it turned into a really good thing, and it changed my life. And now I am into digital marketing and e-commerce and everything that it takes to be successful with a company like that. And we're looking to get that company back to the dominant position in the industry by providing a good selection of systems, getting found online, excellent service. So there's still a fantastic future. It's more competitive now, but there's also more buyers now too, because it's more acceptable to buy things, spend $2,000 or $3,000 on a single product online.
Right. Wow. What a
That's
story.
kind of a summary of AC Direct.
That is awesome. And congrats on, just taking it where you needed to, and then realizing, look, this is where I am, and now I'm going to sell it. I feel like entrepreneurs, you're one of two things. You're a hunter or you're a farmer. Farmers, will keep the business and keep it cash flowing until they give it to their kids, right? Hunters are, let me build this thing, and then, I'm going to find somebody to partner with and then sell it, or build a whole empire and then sell it, right?
Yeah.
So that's good. That I think it is good for entrepreneurs to have that vision and have it very clear as to like what the goal is. Because if you don't, then every single day it's going to determine whether or not you sell it or keep growing it.
Yeah.
So two different thoughts.
The interesting thing too is, Caroline, is I've learned so much for this, and I'm not taking on any new clients. I'm not here to self-promote or anything else, but I'm not looking for clients right now. But I do love sharing what I've learned, because I see things, people posting in Facebook groups and all these different marketing groups and things, and I can tell the new people are still trying to wrap their head around what to do, because it's very confusing. You talk to a guru and they'll tell you one thing, you talk to another guru who's just as good as the last one, and they'll tell you something completely different or a lot different. So it's very confusing for new people that are getting into digital marketing, or for someone who's running their own company and trying to maximize their digital footprint. So it's very fun sharing these details of things that I've learned that I think Google looks at and says, okay, if you want to be successful posting blogs, here's what you need to do. And there's a lot of misinformation out there about blog posting, because the way to make something work with Google, in my opinion, is if it's hard, that's the way to do it, because most people will not spend the time and energy writing 2,000-word blog posts, optimizing images, coming up with punchy headlines and content, putting all the meta tags and everything it takes in that article, and spending 2 or 3 times longer than what I'm going to call the lazy person who just writes a 300 or 400-word blog post and puts it on their website, hopes for the best. But what I have found is, if it's difficult and time-consuming, that's the way to go, because that is what Google likes. They like to see authoritative articles, they like to see authoritative content, and they will give credit to people who spend the time versus people who are just trying to game Google and put some content on the web and hope for the best. I
think you hit the nail on the head there. I think the more original you can be with your content, the more catchy, the more unique, the better your cost per click will be, the more audience you're going to get, the more people that are going to remember you. And I love it how you put, the harder the actual task is, Google will actually reward you. And I feel like it's very similar with every single channel, whether it be ads, emails, whatever. Usually the harder the task is, or the more creativity it kind of sucks from your brain, whether it be like writing the copy or whatever, the more you're going to be rewarded out of it, because it's going to be more unique. It's going to stick out. So I love that concept. Yeah.
And Google's gotten better and better at looking what they consider to be authoritative content, well-written, sentence structure, grammar, punchy headlines that are right to the point and get the people's interest, and then the stylization of the article, so that on a mobile device, you have 3 and 4 line paragraphs, as opposed to what I call a wall of text, which is very interesting to read. And I think when Google sees that stuff, they know that you're trying to increase what we're going to call the UX, the user experience, by making that article very easy to read on a mobile device. And if I was a Google algorithm writer, I believe I would give some credit to someone who's taken that time to make that article much easier for the viewers to read, because Google considers them their viewers, not ours.
Right.
Wit about you and I. All they care about is the viewer experience. So
yeah.
anything you do to increase that and make it better is time well spent.
Yeah, we use this little software. I don't know if it's free or if we pay for it. It doesn't really matter if it is paid for, because it's totally worth it. We use the Hemingway app, and you just copy paste a bunch of text in there, and it'll tell you what grade level of writing it's in. So we try to, on average, write at a 5th grade reading level all the time, whether it's in an email or in an ad or wherever. And then you just copy paste it into the Hemingway app, and it'll tell you immediately what words you need to fix or what sentences. Super easy to use.
Yeah, and just to clarify, when they say that 5th or 6th grade level, they don't mean that a 5th or 6th grader wrote it. They mean that a 5th or 6th grader can read it.
Read it. That's totally different.
Words. Yeah, because a lot of people don't always have the same vocabulary. So using big, catchy words to show how smart you are is not really a good idea in blog articles. It needs to be, just like you said, it needs to be very readable and very scannable too. That's the other thing, is that you got content up into what I call subheadlines, so that if people are scanning it, you can have a subheadline that says in bold, and here's what happened next.
Yeah.
Well, guess they were getting ready to scan through that article and skip it. They're going to want to read, okay, what did happen next? Catchy subheadlines like that can help you increase that user experience.
Right. So I have a very specific question. I think it's, you know, for a lot of these like e-commerce store owners right now, they're trying to hire a team. They're trying to get their sales to maybe $1 million, or maybe they're in that $1 million to $10 million mark. They're wondering, like, how do they hire, and how do they get those team members that are going to bring them to the next level, right? So you've hit that big, you know, multi-million-dollar figure mark. Who were the people that kind of helped you get to that in a team sense? What were their skills, and how did you find them? And like, did you go through an interview process with them? Did you go on instinct? Did you have them do like a DISC or Myers-Briggs or personality index, you know, to kind of evaluate them? And then how did you get them a part of the team and really grow the business to, you know, the $100 million plus mark? You know?
Caroline, that's an excellent question. When I started AC Direct, I actually got lucky. A friend of mine had a girlfriend who had just moved up here from South America, and she had a computer science degree. Mm-hmm. And she didn't know a lot yet about working in e-commerce platforms, because very few people did. But the one thing I did notice about her was she was intelligent. Mm-hmm. And she had a very good ability to learn. So let me kind of clarify your question and say there's 2 levels here. The person who's running an e-commerce site, meaning an e-commerce site means you have a shopping cart, you sell a product online that can be purchased, exactly, as opposed to a static website where you're just advertising your local services and people just call you or email you, and then you come to them or they come to your store, however that works. But e-commerce is defined as a shopping cart is involved on the website. Basically, I got lucky with her. Her name was Christine, and I still work with her to this day. And she learned everything she needed to learn. But I've run across this exact same thing now that I'm back as a consultant with AC Direct. They don't have a Christina there, okay? So what they had was some web people that do work there, but they weren't really familiar with the Magento platform that the AC Direct commerce site is built on. So I've interviewed some of those people, and we're looking at making sure they have the right skills, because I'm either going to use somebody in-house or I'm going to bring someone in. And they don't have to be, in my opinion, a Magento expert per se. They just understand the web. If they've built many WordPress websites, for example, they understand coding and they understand how to find their way and navigate through a complex platform like that. So I would just bring them in and give them a few tasks to do and say, okay, here you do. I need you to try to do this and see how they do with it. Post some blog articles for you. Go in and change what's called some of your meta titles and descriptions. Find a broken link on your website and see if they can fix it. And if they can fix it and figure it out, and they're intelligent and they have a curious mind, that's probably somebody that I would consider very carefully. The other thing you can do if you're just starting out and you don't really want to invest in an in-house person is to go to someplace like Upwork and post your job on there. And then when those people contact you, give them a test. Well, if you need to contact an expert who can write the test for you, but you need to ask them some questions and see how they respond to it. and they need to be in your time zone. That's another mistake I've made many times. You don't want to hire a who is on a completely different time zone than you. They need to be fluent in English because the communication is critical. They're going to have to be able to write clear, easy to read emails to you. And I also make them be available on the phone or Zoom or Skype or something, because I can't do everything via email that I want done creatively to a website.
Right.
I have to have phone to face conversation, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
I would start out with Upwork. Just post your job on Upwork.com. Just post and tell them what you need. The rates are very good, especially for a lot of overseas developers. Sometimes you can get somebody very qualified for 5, 10, 15, 18 bucks an hour. Just depends on what you're looking for. But I would hire the best person I could find. And also, as the owner of the business, you're going to have to educate yourself too, because you can't be subject to everything that your smart people on your staff tell you without having at least some knowledge and insight. In the beginning, you won't. But you do want to investigate what a good-looking website looks like, what an e-commerce site experience should be, what are the best practices when it comes to listing products, product descriptions, use of images. So just get yourself as knowledgeable as possible, because if you're going to be an e-commerce website owner, you need to possess two things, a curious mind and some intelligence. And you have to be able to search, and you want to be able to someone who can go out and learn and read, and because otherwise you're going to be subject to everybody else's opinion on things, which can cause problems for you. But I was fortunate in that I do like to read, I like to research, and I will spend tons of time researching things. And I think that that's going to work for any e-commerce or website owner that is trying to build a business that they want to turn into a multi-million-dollar business. They're going to have to become knowledgeable themselves.
Right. No, that's pretty thorough. So piggybacking off of that, how much technical knowledge do you think that, an e-commerce store owner, let's say like the CEO and the COO of the store, right? How much technical knowledge do they need of every marketing channel that they're doing in order to run the site efficiently, right? So you have a lot of technical knowledge on Google and the way traffic works and things like that. How deep do you think that the owner needs to get to have a good understanding and lead the team to success?
I would say the more the better. But let me clarify that and qualify that. If you're the CEO or COO of a big company and you guys are trying to start up with an e-commerce site, you really don't have the time to dedicate 30 or 40 hours a week to this unless you're willing to go home and spend evenings, weekends, which most people aren't. But I would say at a minimum, you need to understand the basics of SEO. You need to understand what backlinking is. You need to know what on-page SEO is. You need to understand Google's paid search. Now it's called Google Ads. It used to be called AdWords. Have at least a superficial knowledge. So when someone comes to you and says, we're thinking about doing paid search on Google, that doesn't cause an umbrella to flash over your eyes because you have no idea what they're talking about. At least have some knowledge of the different channels, learn as much as you can, but be good at interviewing the people and having test questions to give them so that you can make sure that this person is qualified to do this. And again, the two things I look for is intelligence and a curious mind.
Right.
Those tend to do very well when it comes to these type of technical tasks that we are faced with on e-commerce and websites.
Right. No, I agree with you. I think there's a little bit of technical knowledge maybe they need to understand, but overall, there just needs to be a big understanding of how the business works and also how it's changing all the time, right? Because whether you hire a team or you have somebody on Upwork or whatever, it's important to understand what's actually going on in your business and being a little bit in the business enough to say, okay, if there's a real problem here, then how do we solve it? Or how do I help my team solve it, right?
Yep.
So
that's where it just comes down to being a good manager and having the right people on staff that you can trust and giving them the latitude they need to solve these problems.
Right, for sure.
Great opportunities for you.
So out of that, having a team, that takes like planning and time, right? Like what are we doing this year in revenue, sales? So I have a very specific question on, how would you go about, when you were doing AC Direct and building it from that $1 to $100 million mark, right? How did you go about planning every year and what was happening in the year, right? And then if you could go into like, what's the difference between getting to the first million to 1 to 10 and then 10 to 100 million? What are the different things that store owners or business owners need to be thinking of when they're in those specific segments? And you know, when they're trying to make that next milestone happen?
It's budgeting and planning. I'll be honest with you, to some degree, I had a little bit of luck involved, but a lot of it, I had pretty good instincts back then. For example, when I would write a product description about an air conditioning system, I didn't use the manufacturer's documents to do that, because in my opinion, it was very stark and kind of cold. And I thought that if I did it that way, that my competition would probably do it the same way, so we would all have the same content.
Right.
And somehow I just instinctively understood, even back then, that that's not really a good experience for a user to go from one website to the next and see the exact same product descriptions. So I had my IT people write very unique product descriptions for each product that we wrote ourselves, and we didn't use we used the manufacturer's information as our guideline and our source of information, but we made the content very unique. But to go from 500,000 to 5 million came down to being found online and the quality of the website. So we built a new website, and we made sure that the user experience was very good, that the navigation was intuitive, that when they clicked on something, it took them where they were expecting to go, and they found what they expected to see. And the only way you can come up with the answer—
hold that thought right there. That's a super simple finding, right? You would never think that it's just that. Just make sure your website's easy to use and people can find what they can find. That's how you get to 5 million, guys. That's the golden nugget right there. Your website is
that's one of many steps, but your website, the user experience needs to be stellar, and you're going to have to get involved in that. If you've got the funding, you can hire what are called UX experts. These are people that are very good at user experience that can tell you how to go in and modify your website, but you need to already be doing some business, have some cash flow, and have the profits to invest in that. But if you do, it's a very, very good investment. The second step to getting into a multi-million-dollar business is having the traffic. And the traffic comes down to having the right on-page search engine optimization techniques in place that Google likes to see when they crawl your website, and then also getting ranked on Google for the right keywords. And this is a whole other seminar in and of itself, and we could be here for 2 weeks me trying to explain that. But
oh gosh.
yourself, as you know, educate yourself on search engine optimization, learn the basics, which is give Google what they want to believe that you are the better experience for anybody searching for a given keyword in your industry. And that's going to take a lot of time and a lot of knowledge, but there are courses you can buy, there's people you can follow, and there's things you can learn online reading blogs. But again, to me, it's something that if you're interested in it and you want to build a multi-million-dollar business, be prepared to spend the time yourself and learn the fundamentals of this, so that when you're hiring people, you at least have some knowledge of what you're talking about.
Right. So people that are in the $5-10 million, trying to get to the $100 million range, what is that? What's the secret sauce with that? How do they get there?
Well, that kind of comes back now to just reinvesting your profits back in a business. And what you can do is take a look and see, okay, are you on page 1 or position 8 for what I'm going to call a money keyword, like your highly desired keyword that thousands of people are searching every month? Because if you're in position 8 and you can get up to position 3, you're going to see that the clicks on that particular link are going to probably triple. So you're going to get 3 times as much traffic by going from position 8 to position 3. And then if you get from position 3 to position 1, it's going to double again. So now it just comes down to refining what you've already done along the way correctly. Because obviously if you're doing $5 or $10 million a year, you're getting found online. You're probably doing something right with paid search. You're maybe using social media or some other channels. But you take each of those and then you start refining what you've already learned and what has worked so far, and keep improving it by investing more money and time into it.
Right. That's good. So what I'm hearing is, to the first $1 million mark, you know, get some really good team members that are super smart and hustlers and have that motivation, you know, really, really learn Google and how it ranks, right? Spend some ad dollars on Google and wherever, right? To get that traffic. And then once you're hit in the multi-million dollars, then it's all about ranking and multiplying your ad dollars and multiplying the audience that you already have to the same products that you have.
Yeah, you just nailed it. And if you're the CEO or the owner of a company, you have to have somebody on your team, be it yourself, an employee, a consultant, or an outside firm who is really, really good at these 4 areas, which is search engine optimization, social media, paid search, and click and sales funnels, having people come to your website. So somebody on your team needs to be really, really good at this. And it probably will not be you as the owner, but it needs to either be an employee or a firm that you've outsourced to do the work for you. And be careful when you hire these firms, because in my experience, they say that 60% of statistics are made up on the spot, and I'm about to prove that.
Yeah.
But 94% of SEO agencies really don't get very good results. Same with paid search. You have to be extremely careful with Google Ads managers and with SEO managers, because a lot of people rely on the turnover. They get new clients on, the client kind of plays them for 6 months, and then they leave because they're not getting results, and then they go find somebody else to replace them. Unfortunately, that is a big component of this digital marketing industry. So you have to make sure that whoever you get really knows what they're doing. And
I would agree 100%.
Yep.
I would agree 100%. I think it's also, it's on the expert to be able to tell you, you know, what they can do for your business, and do they have experience in that. The least experience that they have, or the more experience they have, the less risk that you have in hiring them, right? So if they have experience in e-commerce, or, you know, in your specific industry, those are really good green flags, right? If they don't, that's a really big red flag that I would watch out for, and I would steer clear from. It doesn't mean that they can't do it, right? But it does mean you have a lot more risk in hiring them, and it's your dollars, right? So, you know,
absolutely.
Rolling into that, I did have a question on, like, you know, you've obviously had, you know, some investments that you thought would really work out and they didn't return anything, right? So what was that experience like, and how did you turn it around? If you can, like, go through one of those experiences.
Yeah, let me think about that first. My favorite saying is that you fail your way to success. So I am not afraid to try something. I try to vet it very carefully, because I've learned over time, the more careful you are, the less failures you have. But you do fail your way to success by trying new things, thinking outside the box. So I'm not afraid.
So good. The more careful you are, the less failure you have, but you need to fail to be successful.
Yes.
That's a good one.
You encapsulated that into a Fitzgerald quote, I think.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I love it. Oh my God.
Yeah. So to me, it's like, don't be afraid to fail. There's nothing wrong with taking imperfect action. Even if you have an idea and you're not 100% certain of whether it's going to work, which you will probably never know, don't be afraid to take imperfect action, which is to get out there and try it. Monitor it very carefully. Watch your return on investment. Try different elements of it. When you're trying a new idea, don't just do one thing and say, oh, it didn't work. Like social media, for example. You're an expert on that. You know that images and ads and landing pages all have to be split tested and tried. Even if the first one you put up works, it doesn't mean you couldn't have done better.
Exactly.
Or if the first one failed, doesn't mean that that's a path to failure. It just means that one didn't work and it didn't resonate with your audience. So I'm sorry, repeat your question again. I got so caught up in that thought that I kind of...
You're good. It was just, and that was already kind of answering it already, but I was asking that was really good, by the way. And I had another thought. One of our clients, Classy Network, said, you know, when they got to their first million last year, he said, you got to buy your way to the first million. So that, in essence, kind of does parallel with your thoughts of, you have to fail in order to succeed to learn, right? Yeah. And getting there is really important, and being able to make those strategies happen to make that incremental success until you hit that first 7 figures. But then it doesn't stop there either. You got to still keep placing very calculated bets on your business to see what investments are going to turn out well, right? But my question was basically, like, have you made an investment, that was something you thought would turn out really well, and for some reason it didn't? Maybe you invested in a bunch of ads doing this certain thing and it didn't. How did you turn it around? And, maybe talk about the experience. You don't have to give names or anything, but, or exact experience, but there's things that I think entrepreneurs, we test all the time, whether you're an e-com store or an HVAC company or whatever, right? You're always testing things. You make sizable investments, $10,000 here, $50,000 here, $100,000 here. Maybe the thing worked, or maybe the thing didn't work, or maybe it wasn't working in the middle, and then you had to pivot, right? Tell me
Right.
about one of those experiences where it didn't work and then you pivoted and then it was successful. You know, it could have been like an ad or a page or an email headline or something.
The first thing I can think of, Caroline, would be when Google AdWords or Google Ads came out in the fall of 2002. My company was about a year old, and I was desperate for a way to have sustainable, accountable traffic, because SEO, as I said back then, was brand new. And I felt very unsure about my ability to drive traffic through SEO. Paid search, I was like, oh, thank you, God. This was like the perfect thing for me to be able to drive predictable, reliable traffic to the website. And back then, my clicks were between 15 and 30 cents a piece. And just as an aside, I remember they hit 40 cents, and I remember thinking the bottom was falling out, and this was never going to work. This is 40 cents a click I was complaining about.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. So that became a way. We had a budget of about $25,000 or $30,000 a month for AdWords, but we were generating a couple $100,000 a month in sales. But when I started, it failed miserably because I had no idea what I was doing. Google AdWords was brand new. Nobody knew anything about it. So we had to just get on the interface and hope for the best. And once I discovered I'd had a little bit of training in the past when it came to marketing with ads, and I knew from experience that if you had a phone book ad or a newspaper ad, you didn't let the phone book company or the newspaper company write your ad because it would look like every other ad in the newspaper or the phone book.
Mm-hmm.
Did know is if you're going to spend money on advertising, spend about 10 or 15% of that budget on a good ad.
Mm-hmm.
Put it into the ad and then put it into a good channel. So using that knowledge, I was able to write really good, catchy ads that looked different than anything else consumers were used to seeing at that time. So I was able to get good click-through rates. And with Google, with Google Ads specifically, when you get good click-through rates and good results, you pay less for the ad because you're actually bidding on these keywords. And when your quality scores go up on your keywords, your cost per click goes down. So I was able to keep my clicks down, but not until I figured out what it took to get there. So my first failure was with AdWords. We were actually losing money. But I was convinced that there was a way to make it work. So I just studied it and learned it and kept testing and trying different ads, trying different concepts.
So you were running it yourself at the time?
Yes, I ran it myself for the first probably 8 or 10 years.
Wow. So you were running the business and the AdWords?
Yes, correct. Yep. And I got very good at it and I learned a lot. I post articles on LinkedIn all the time. If anybody goes to my LinkedIn profile, I have a ton of articles on there about common mistakes that people make with AdWords and things you want to avoid, and how to do landing pages and that sort of thing. So there's some basic techniques with AdWords that will work if you do them, and you'll fail if you don't. It's as simple as that, really. So that's, to answer your question, that's the first thing I can think of was AdWords was a big failure for me in the beginning. But fortunately, it did allow me to almost break even. But it showed me that if I could get good at it, the profitability center, and that's really what got AC Direct started was ads on Google.
Yeah. And but I also feel like, you know, when people are just starting out, like say they've never launched ads before, even if they do have a successful business, you kind of have to lose money to get data on the pixel because you're not statistically significant on that platform yet until you start putting money in, right?
Yep.
You could, but it's a lot riskier, right? So, you know, for one of our e-commerce stores, flightpathgolf.com, we were 3-4K in deep negative before we started making money. So you know, last year that e-commerce store just hit 64K of us running it for 6 months, and that's like at best, right? But it could take, you know, possibly 3 to 6 months to crack that nut on the ad account, whatever it is, on Facebook or on Google or YouTube or wherever, right? And once you crack the nut, just like you said, you're making a really good variable revenue on your costs every day, your cost per click, and that cost per click is freaking low. That would never happen anymore for the most part. So
well, you're fortunate that your client trusted you and allowed you to, you know, and you probably set the bar when you first started, but the fact that they hung in there with you while you were losing, which is very common in AdWords or Facebook, and a lot of people don't realize it takes several months to get that account seasoned and get it working properly, and people have to be patient and understanding of that.
Exactly.
Owners are so short on cash or so short on temperament or trust that they don't always give it the length of time it takes to make sure that it's going to work successfully, and they'll draw a conclusion after 3 or 4 weeks and say, I knew it, social media doesn't work.
Right.
Or fortunately, that's not really the way it works, and it's not true.
Exactly. That's like, if we just started a gym or a boot camp tomorrow, and then this person joined and they were overweight, and then they were still overweight at the end and blamed us,
Whose fault is that?
Whose fault is that? Not, not the people that have the boot camp. It just is what it is. You have to keep working hard at the business, so I totally, get that for sure. And especially on LinkedIn now. So LinkedIn ads are available. They've been available for a couple years now, right? But that doesn't mean that they're cheaper. And also it's a more affluent audience, right? So your cost per click is going to be a multiple of what you get off of Facebook and what you get off of Google, right? And even on there, you got to spend $3,000 to $5,000 to even be somewhat statistically significant on there. So for people who are getting all those B2B leads and looking for more B2B leads, you're going to pay more on LinkedIn, but that means your messaging and your content has to be that much better than other people that are spending money on there.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one thing. If you're a business owner and you're trying to build your position on the internet, I'll tell you one thing that I see that most companies are not doing, and they should. And I'm going to give you an example. Is writing articles, sharing them on social media, putting them on your website, putting them on LinkedIn, and building trust and authority in your industry by sharing free, insightful knowledge about what it is that your viewers and your customers, the pain that they are experiencing. If you're in the insurance business, tell them what to look for when they buy a life insurance policy. Tell them what to not buy. Do they get a whole life? Do they get a term policy? Explain these things to people in a very simple to understand way. I'll tell you another, and I use this one all the time because to me it's just absolutely amazing. DUI attorneys. I don't know anybody who knows what they should do if they've been drinking, and you shouldn't drink and drive, I'll say that, but if a DUI attorney ever wrote an article and said, here's what you should do if you get pulled over and you've been drinking. Tell people exactly, do I get out of the car? Do I have to take the breathalyzer test? Whatever, just educate people on what they should do when they get pulled over and what their rights are, what their rights aren't. And people would read that article and share it all over the internet, but nobody is doing that. That's one example. If you're a pool supplier and you build pools for homeowners, tell them the best way to clean the pool. What kind of chemicals should you use that aren't bad for your skin and for your children? What type of equipment should you have? How do you keep leaves out of the pool? What's the best vacuum to buy? But people aren't doing this. And I don't understand it because there is a lot of people that are curious about these things to do with their home, their health, their well-being, their kids, their family. And if I was a business owner, if I was going to share one thing that anybody out there that's trying to get themselves found online, one of the first things I would do is start writing articles every single week. And if you're not a writer, hire someone, because there are writers out there who will write 2,000 word articles for you for 40, 50, 60 bucks. Yep. Some are better than others. When you find a good one, they will do a good job. You may have to edit it for corrections and that sort of thing a little bit here and there, but try to post those at least once a week, and you would be amazed at what it'll do for your trust and authority, both in Google's eyes and in your client base, of them looking for good, solid information. You're going to be the go-to person. And that's just not happening enough out there.
I totally agree. Content is everything, and that's a really good idea. Sharing and getting that consistent content once a week, right? And doing blogs. I think that's a really great way to drive some traffic and also really high intent search traffic. One of the things that we finally started doing at the agency, thank God, was doing a weekly newsletter. So that's been amazing. We have 4 different sections in there, a tool time for when we have certain softwares that we like using. Obviously, we have a case study piece in there, clickbait of, oh, well, we did all this, Yeah. And that's been amazing for our business, and it's very easy for us to create that. It should be easy for anybody to create a newsletter with 4 exact sections of what you want to share every week to your. So
you send that out weekly?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
And it may be harder for like a business owner who's running the business and doing that. So starting out and doing 1 article a week, that's really awesome. And you should definitely do that first. You definitely need at least 1,000 emails to write to if you're going to start doing a newsletter and really start educating your audience and things like that. So you need an email list of at least 1,000. But Michael's idea of writing a weekly blog, weekly article, definitely everybody should be doing that. It does work wonders, and it will build your authority on the internet. Whether or not it's Google seeing it, one of your audience members are going to see it, and it's going to be somebody qualified. And you can't really focus on if people like it or not. Those are called vanity metrics, right? And that doesn't really matter. What matters is people who comment on it and people who DM you after you write that article or after you make a post. It's those silent followers that are going to follow you until you say something so awesome and amazing that it touched them so much that they had to DM you or they had to call you or whatever. Those are the real metrics you want to be able to track, not likes, not posts, maybe shares. That's a good one. Maybe people who bookmark your posts on Instagram, there's that feature for you to look at. But writing an article is something easy that everybody can do. And Michael is so right. There are so many writers out there that are super cost effective. If you just have a full-time job or if you have a business that maybe is only doing 5 figures a year, that's still very affordable to get somebody to write every week to help build your business. You know, that's going to at least create a 5 to 6 figure revenue stream for you if you're not doing that already, as long as the content is good.
The way to easily test them too is if you come across a writer you like, give them the headline, tell them the headline so they know what the subject matter is, and then ask them to write a 300-word article or a 200 or 300-word article. See what the quality of their writing is, because if they can do a good job with 300 words, they can do a good job with 2,000 words. But that's a good way to test somebody and see how their skills are, because they not only need to be a good writer, they need to be a good researcher, because they probably know nothing about your industry.
Right.
They have to be good at is going out and researching it and turning what they learn into an authoritative sound when they write and make that come out in the article as though an expert wrote it. And that's really not that hard to find those people if you spend a little bit of time, and you're going to go through 2 or 3 or 4 before you find the right one, but just be prepared to spend the time because it's definitely worth your while.
Definitely. Definitely. So I got plenty of other questions for you.
All right.
You know, now that you have this big exit, you know, and you're somewhat retired, I mean, you got rehired back, but what else is on the horizon?
Well, my goal right now is I would like to, because I look at AC Direct as the company I started, I call it my baby all the time. They're probably, AC Direct will probably sick of me here saying that.
No, you're good, man.
I want to reestablish this company as the, not just a leader, but the leader in the business. I'm taking this as a personal challenge to where that AC Direct will be the leader in the industry without question or fail, being that we are the go-to site for information, for purchases, and that we're ranking #1 on Google for the important keywords, that we're on social media in the right ways at the right times. But to me, I think the next step is that I think e-commerce sites need to be revamped the way they work, especially when you're on a mobile device. We've got a long way to go, because I try to buy stuff on e-commerce sites all the time, and it is a horrible experience, even on big sites like Amazon. You would think Amazon would be the go-to place if you want to build an e-commerce site, and they are, but the experience, somebody needs to rethink the way that we run e-commerce on mobile devices, because it's, in my opinion, it doesn't work very well. It's too hard to find what you want, and it's too hard to get the information on that product. It's too hard to compare it to other products. I should be able to do that easily when I'm buying a product that I don't know much about on a website. But I just think somebody needs, and I've been thinking about that for the last 4 or 5 years, and I'm hoping I'm going to come up with some concept that's going to break the rules on how this is done, but I haven't done it yet. But you asked me a simple question, what would I like to do? That would be my next big step, is just rework the e-commerce sites, act and react on mobile devices.
Love it. That's really cool. Another little golden nugget note that you reminded me of. One of the things that we've done with our e-commerce stores is install Amazon Pay. And it is, and it's not very well known. Like, not a lot of people who have Shopify stores use Magento, things like that. They don't know like how many people use Amazon Pay. A lot of people use Amazon Pay. And it's crazy because a lot of people that use Amazon Pay also have very high average order values. We're looking at up to 10 to 50% on average, more average order values of people buying more things on our client stores that use Amazon Pay than the regular customer. So that would be my suggestion.
Interesting.
For everybody. Yeah.
Because we're actually updating the payment methods on the AC Direct website. And Amazon Pay was one that I was looking at, but it's good to hear you say that, because I wasn't aware of that.
It is insane.
Include that.
Now, sometimes they'll be annoying and hold your money, so be careful of that, but that's just how Amazon works. But it also factors in, or that's my assumption anyway, you know, on what you know, think about the end consumer, right? The end consumer loves Amazon. And that's why everybody buys on Amazon, because they trust Amazon is going to give them exactly what they ordered. Consistency, just like McDonald's, right? Might not be the best, might not be the worst, but you're getting exactly what you ordered or what you thought in your head what it was going to be. So the same thing with Amazon Pay. They see Amazon Pay, they already have it there, just like PayPal, but it's the next step over, because people just have this blind trust that Amazon is going to get it together so they factor that into, you know, you having that on your website, and then they're all like, okay, automatically. But yeah, for that, it's you know, you want Apple, Google Pay, Amazon Pay, PayPal. Feel like I'm forgetting one. I know you have this already on AC Direct, but for everybody listening, you want to have like, what are all the payments that allow you to pay in payment plans? I'm trying to think of.
Yeah, there's, I was just looking into those. One of them starts with a Z, and I can't think of the name of it now. Zitto.
Afterpay. Afterpay is one of them. I know. I was trying to think of the
break
Z
it up
one,
into
too. I'm
3
like,
payments.
I can't think of it.
Yeah.
But
they charge the merchant about 6% or so, but the person who makes the purchase gets interest-free, very short-term financing. You get somewhere between 3 to 6 payments, and their payments are structured on 2 weeks, not a month. So basically, you get anywhere from a month and a half to 2.5 months to pay for your purchase without any interest. And that's got to be very, very, very popular with the younger generation, millennials especially. Although I think it's good for anybody. It doesn't matter how old you are. You know, the time value of money is always important. Right. You can buy something that you need now, but you can't necessarily afford it this week. But I think it's a good idea. So yeah, that's a very interesting trend that I think you and I talked about the last time we met.
Yeah, we did, for sure. No, I would recommend unless it's like a branding thing and maybe you have a high-end line where you don't want to have like Afterpay or all these other payment plans, I would recommend it to all e-com stores. At least try it for a week and see what it does with your conversions and see if people are using it or not, because you don't want to have barriers to entry on your store at all, you know.
Yeah, you want to make the experience as easy as possible. And most of us have to get rid of the blind spot. And that blind spot is what's good for us as a company, because consumers don't care. What they care about is what's good for them. So to me, as soon as you can cure that blind spot about what is best for us and make it all about what's best for the customer, including these payment options, then that's a step in the right direction.
Right. So with AC Direct, you have an e-commerce portion, and then you have a sales rep, right? That can also, people can call in and they can sell them on the phone, correct?
That's correct. We offer support where they can call in and place their order on the phone, which about 50 to 60% of the customers do, because they need help selecting the right system type, because air conditioning is very complicated. You've got all sorts of different types of equipment. You've got different energy efficiency ratings. You've got gas furnaces, heat pumps, electric heat. So it can be a bit complicated for some people. And so those people that need something now but don't have time to investigate will sometimes just call in and we'll help them on the phone. They can send us pictures of their existing equipment. We can ask a few questions, and that way we can help them make sure they get the right equipment. But yes, about 40 to 45% of our orders are placed in the shopping cart, and the other 50 to 55% are placed via a phone call into the office to our support staff.
Wow. So if you didn't have the support staff, then possibly your revenue would be cut in half.
Yes, we have to have a support staff.
Yeah, that's crazy. What do you think of all stores having a support staff? You know, because it's really important for everybody to have customer service, but how much would somebody need to invest in for like one person or two people to just be there to like answer questions? And how much do you think that would matter with your experience with AC Direct and having like a full team, right?
It depends on your product and or your service, because some things are going to be more labor intensive when it comes to support, both at the time of sale and after the sale. Because for example, with us, we have to turn around and ship this 500-pound system across the country. So we have to make sure they receive it. Then they have to install it. And sometimes their installer will call up with questions. So we have certified installers and trained technicians that can help them answer their questions about that. So in our business, it's absolutely critical, because we couldn't just sell them this $3,000 or $4,000 air conditioning system and then step aside and expect them to figure it out on their own. So if you're in the healthcare business and you're selling supplements, I would think that a support staff would be less required, but I still do not understand companies who think that they don't need support, because a lot of people still want to call and place an order on the phone. There's a tremendous portion of the population that doesn't trust the web and doesn't like putting their credit card number in a shopping cart, and they would rather just call in. And then, they're going to have questions after they buy the product. So to me, when I go to a website, be it a digital marketing agency or a coaching thing that doesn't have a phone number on it, that tells me they're not really set up for service. The only way they'll respond is via email. That tells me they don't have a real support staff. So you have to decide as a business owner how much you're willing to invest, and or whether or not that support is absolutely mandatory to your customer base.
Right. 100%. Yeah, it's really interesting. A lot of like going back to the golf tee store, Flight Path Golf, we have, one to two people at any time on the staff. And what we've been doing, which has actually increased sales, is upselling people when they come in, or and ask more about the product, upselling them to a new package where they actually pay more. Maybe they get a better discount, or it's maybe somebody that's angry, like a customer that didn't get what they needed, or maybe the shipment got lost or whatever. It's been a good way for us to recover revenue. If somebody who was probably super pissed, but then another human talked to them for a few minutes, maybe on the chat or over the phone, and then, wow, everything's better. And we didn't get a return,
The human interaction is important. If somebody's mad and they're emailing you back and forth, it's easy to get mad and stay mad, because emailing doesn't solve that problem. But if you get a sympathetic rep on the phone who's trained and knows how to talk to a customer who's mad, you can completely turn that customer around and avoid a 1-star review and turn around and maybe get a 5-star review. So yeah, the interaction thing, to me, the support staff, depending on your industry again, but I would say in most physical product industries, it's very important to have a support staff that people can talk to.
Right. Those are some good notes. Are there any other really important infrastructure pieces that are necessary, like customer service? You got to have your ads, you got to have your email marketing. What other important elements are there that you need that maybe a business owner wouldn't think of for e-commerce?
One thing I learned the hard way is that I've always been big on training and making sure that my staff is well trained and educated. And I always thought I did a good job of that. But I can tell you this, when I started recording phone calls, I started a company called AC for Life in 2009, which was the local division of AC Direct, which was a local service and installation and maintenance company here in Orlando. So this was in a local company. When you needed repair or maintenance to your air conditioning system for your home or business, we would come to your home and fix it. So we get a lot of phone calls and things, and I thought I was training my people well on how to deal with these phone calls, but then I started recording the phone calls and listening to them, and boy, was I shocked.
Oh, yeah.
Hard way that my training wasn't necessarily sinking in the way that I hoped.
Oh gosh.
Calls that I was just devastated over what the customer had to experience. And it wasn't that my rep was necessarily rude. They just were not tuned in to what that person on the other end of the line needed to experience and hear. So when I started recording those phone calls and listening to them, I found out that I had to start from scratch with my training. And it had to be training about how to talk to people on the phone, how to deal with particular questions, how to be empathetic, how to smile when you're talking and sound like you are happy that customer came. And when a customer calls you up and says, listen, my air conditioner just broke down and I've got an infant here and it is hot as heck in here, rather than going, okay, what is your name? The very first words out of my mouth would be, well, guess what? You called the right place and we're going to help you with that. Now, what can I do? And then you start the conversation, but you always show empathy whenever a customer experiences pain or a problem on the phone. You don't just give them the cold robotic, what is your name? What is your address? You want to empathize with what they just told you. And these are the kind of things that I learned by training my people on the phone and getting them to be more reactive to people and being more human on the phone. Our star ratings went up on the Google reviews dramatically because we started the experience before the technician even got to the home or before a product was ever delivered. We started off the experience by telling the customer that we do care about your problems and your pain, and we want to help you solve those.
That's great.
Part of the training is make sure that your people are very interactive, sympathetic, and very good on the phone, and spend a lot of time and money doing that, because it's very important to your business.
So thinking about the craziness in the world right now, I call it the virus recession, because we got a virus and a recession happening at once.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of crazy. You know, I know, you know, you've been growing, you know, both your little AC, not little, but the AC empire, right? I'll call it that, right?
Okay. Sounds like a new movie.
Huh?
Sounds like a new movie.
Yes. Hell yeah. You know, I know you've at least been through 2008, you know, that recession. You know, can you tell us a little bit of words of wisdom for business owners out there, maybe people who are giving up, or maybe people who are just struggling through the hard times, maybe sales are down, maybe there's just things just aren't happening the way that they want to. How do you not only survive, but thrive through these times?
Well, don't give up, because that's the first mistake you're going to make. And I was going to say earlier, keep plenty of cash in the bank, because I learned that the hard way. When the downturn in the economy hit, I wasn't prepared for it. I always thought that I had the golden touch and I was going to keep growing my business to the moon, but I wasn't prepared for that downturn when it happened, and it was very traumatic for us. So one thing I learned was keep plenty of cash and have plenty of credit line available. But during this coronavirus thing, I would say one thing you don't want to do is go on your website and start addressing the coronavirus, unless you're somehow directly related to it, if your product or service is directly related to it, because I've heard some talk, and I haven't verified this yet, but I've seen some people in some of the digital marketing groups I'm a member of saying that as soon as they put something about the coronavirus on their website, their rankings dropped. I don't think Google would do that, and I haven't had a chance to investigate it yet, so I'm not recommending that you go on there and acknowledge the coronavirus, because I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to be sympathetic to your customer base, but at this point, I would just kind of leave it alone until we have more information. And if there's a way for you to use social media or Zoom meetings in your business, get on it, because Zoom meetings are going to allow you to meet with your customers like you and I are doing right here. This is a Zoom meeting.
Yes.
I don't have to drive to your office, or you don't have to drive to mine. We can have this meeting online, and it's very productive. So anything you can do, and I would also be producing information out there during this time frame. We talked earlier about writing articles, but if you're in a business that's being dramatically affected by this, for a restaurant, for example, I would be writing articles about recipes. And it's going to seem kind of dumb to you, because you're going to go, well, how's that going to help me solve my problem? But I don't think restaurants give out their recipes enough, because they're afraid that if they give out their recipe, people are going to steal it. But to me, people like free, authoritative information, and I will not put that recipe together in my kitchen. If I like it, I'll come and see it. So if I was a restaurant, I would be trying to build my customer base and my authority by giving out free information about what it takes to be in the restaurant business, what's going on in the restaurant business with the coronavirus, share information, write informative articles about how to take care of your food in your home. What do you have to freeze? What should you keep things at a temperature at? How do I make my vegetables last longer? Do I wrap them? Do I leave them open? But give out that sort of information. And then when things do come back around, which they will, you're going to have that many more people who think, wow, these people are really knowledgeable and very authoritative. So if I was in that business, that's what I would be doing right now. I'd be working on that every day.
Yeah, those are some golden nuggets for sure. I would also say, you know, if you have the capacity to, you know, allocate some investment to go into building some of your business online. I know this brick and mortar store owner who now has taken his product and is working on the manufacturing piece to eventually just open up an online e-commerce store and sell it online. So yeah, you can easily take a department of what your brick and mortar store is good at, the really unique one, because keep in mind, there's a lot of noise online. You're going to have to be unique. Take a piece of that doesn't take as much investment, right? And somehow bring it online where you don't have to be in a brick and mortar setting to make money, right? And
absolutely,
you know, like Michael and I were talking about, doesn't mean it's going to be an easy road when you bring your business online, but hey, that's another revenue stream that you could be making without having that brick and mortar investment at all.
Yep, very true.
Yeah, so I usually thank you so much, Michael, for all your words of wisdom and the awesome, really cool stories. I think there are a lot of golden nuggets dropped here during this podcast. I like to close the podcast with one motivational quote you go by, maybe on a hard day or a good day, or just one that you like. And tell us what the story is behind it, why you like the quote, or what the connection is.
I'm probably going to get this wrong, and I think it was, I can't remember who quoted it.
Make your own version. It's cool.
Yeah, I'm going to have to make my own version. No, I'm going to have to think of another one because I'm going to mess that one up. I'm going to have to go back to what I said earlier, the short one, which is you fail your way to success.
That was a good one.
Using that one all the time. Whenever I'm afraid to do something, I'm afraid I don't have the right insight or knowledge, I just use that as my motivation. You fail your way to success. So let's say that I take that imperfect action, as we called it earlier. I take that imperfect action and I completely fail. So what? You just keep on moving. You either revise what you do, you revamp it and go back and start over again, or you just try something completely different. But failing, to me, is how we learn in life. Our successes are helpful, but I don't think they teach us near as much as our failures do. So to me, I would be less afraid of failing and getting out there and just trying things. And if you've been thinking about getting into e-commerce, you've been thinking about building your website or improving your website, just do it. Just do what you can, take your imperfect action, do the best you can. And if it doesn't work, revise it or start something new. But don't ever give up don't ever quit before you try.
Hey, that's amazing, Michael. I think all of us could definitely learn from that. I think it sucks to fail. Nobody likes doing it.
No.
It's an ego hit. Everybody
Yeah.
likes to think they're the badass entrepreneur, especially now that entrepreneurship is like cool. But
Yeah.
There's failures every day. I go through them. Michael goes through them all day. I have multiple a day. I have multiple rejections being someone on the sales front line. But you take those hits as just a rite of passage as being an entrepreneur, a business owner, and you don't get emotionally connected. Just know that you have, you'll have a plan, right? And the plan may go right or left, but just be mentally prepared that it's going to go right or left. And you may want it to go straight, but eventually goes whatever way.
Yeah, you just hit it right on the head.
Yeah, and that's when we lose our minds, right? When we're like, no, it needs to go straight. But that's just not how business works. You got to stay level-headed and logical, right?
Yep, exactly.
Awesome.
Carol, good being here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Hey, we got to do this again, man. This is
okay. Let me know. We'll do it.
Hell yeah. I love it.